Earlier this fall, I had the chance to watch a new documentary about bank swallows called Beyond Our Senses Bank Swallows. I caught up with the documentary creator, David Busse, to discuss what went into the making of the film. What you're about to see is the trailer for the film, followed by our discussion about it. If you're listening instead of watching, feel free to skip ahead to the discussion and enjoy the show.
Throughout the animal kingdom, species perceive forces, colors, sights, and sounds hidden from our human senses, causing them to experience the world in their own special way. These tiny, unassuming creatures are bank swallows, the fighter jets of their kingdom, with perceptions that transcend our experience of time, space, and the forces of our planet. An avian civilization marching to a rhythm all its own, raising the next generation before it's too late.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Badgerland Birding Podcast. If you are listening in a way where you can actually view the podcast, you just saw the trailer to a new documentary by David Busse called Beyond Our Senses Bank Swallows. And I'm actually joined by David today, and he's going to talk a little bit about what went into making this film and what he learned and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, David, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about this entire project.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So where did this all start? Let's just go back to the beginning because I actually met you at the planetarium at Retzer Nature Center, which is kind of my local nature center, and I was not expecting the planetarium film to even be about birds, and then I heard you talking at the front of the line that we were about to see a film about bank swallows. So where
Yeah.
did this all begin? Take me back to the origins.
Yeah, so actually, during the pandemic, I did a photo series project on Lake Michigan where I would take, for a while, I was taking a picture of Lake Michigan every day. And then one day I went to Sheridan Park to take a picture, and I saw what looked like thousands of birds flying over Lake Michigan. And then I looked out over the bluffs, and then you'd just see all these birds flying to and from the bluffs in scene of what looked like complete chaos to the naked eye. And yeah, at the time, I didn't even know that they were what kind of bird they were. I didn't know anything about them. I was just fascinated because Sheridan Park, it's only about like less than 10 miles south of downtown Milwaukee. And so it's in a pretty urban setting. But to see thousands of birds all, flying over the lake and nesting, it wasn't something that you expect to see so close to a major city. So I became fascinated by it. And then it was actually a couple of years before I started filming, but a few years later, I decided to film it originally. And actually backing up a little bit, I did have like a successful nature documentary on the film festival circuit that was basically I filmed a snowstorm scene of seagulls diving for food. It was just basically a 5-minute sequence of seagulls diving for food. And I got into about 10 film festivals. So I wanted to follow up that success with another nature documentary. So when I first went out to actually film the bank swallows, I thought that I would maybe film for 2-3 days, and then every time I'd go out to film, I would see something that I found interesting and that I wanted to try to capture. So then that 2 to 3 days slowly became a couple months, and then that couple months became now 3 summers of filming, and now it's extended to a 27-minute documentary.
Yeah, that's wild. So I want to go back and talk about the gull film that you did.
Oh
So
yeah,
it was like
okay,
5 minutes of gulls diving in a storm. Was it
yes.
titled anything?
It was just called Snowstorm, and I could definitely send you a link. I'm happy, if you're up for putting that in your YouTube description or whatever. But Yeah, is basically like this was during the time when I was doing more of the uh, photos of Lake Michigan every day. So I think this was winter of 2021 that I filmed it. There, I noticed that during snowstorms, especially the Lake Michigan would just become absolutely crazy with waves crashing. And there was a snowstorm one Sunday, which was perfect for me because I have, a full-time job. So I was able to, just dedicate the morning to just going out and filming in a snowstorm. So I went to McKinley Marina, and there you'd see waves crashing up, like hitting the barrier and then crashing up like 20 feet into the air. So I captured some of that, and then I went down the street just a little bit north of Bradford Beach in Milwaukee, and I saw this scene of a dozen or so seagulls diving for food, and then also there were bufflehead ducks like right behind them. And again, like I'm kind of came to this all as not really a birder. I feel like this made me discover that I like birds because I didn't know that they were bufflehead ducks until after I finished the film, and then people were like, "Oh, those are bufflehead ducks," and I was like, "Oh, cool."
They're telling you about your own film.
Yeah, yeah,
Did
yeah.
anybody get on you for using the word seagull too instead of the popular or proper birding vernacular of just gull or ring-billed or herring gull?
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I know. I didn't even know that.
That's
So
one of those birder things that they get on you for if you call them seagulls because they're like, well, it's not actually at the sea and it has a technical name, so
interesting. Okay, got it. I mean, I feel like you could call Lake Michigan a sea, though, right? I mean,
it's
it's
basically a
pretty
sea.
close.
We've had
Yeah.
people up for tours from Florida and they'll be like, I thought you could see the other side. I didn't understand the scale of this lake.
Yeah. No, I hear that a lot. Like, it's until you see it, I feel like a lot of people doubt it's how majestic it is until you actually, see it with your eyes.
Did you have a clip from that short film that you did about the gulls in the Bank Swallow documentary as well? Because I remember a clip where there were the gulls in the foreground. I could see a bunch of ducks in the background. It looked like it was right near Bradford Beach.
Yeah, that you're exactly right. That was so. Yeah, I was able to sneak two clips from my previous film into this one, which was something very intentional because just like I said, following up on the success. But yeah, so that's a good eye because yeah, that clip was yeah one of my favorite shots because yeah, you see the about dozen gulls
There you
flying.
go.
Yeah, you see the dozen gulls like flying, and what's so fascinating about it too is like I mean it's like a very windy day where humans just did not want to be outside. Humans like this was a day you're inside. If you go outside, you're bundled up and you just try to get inside as quickly as you can because it's just miserable for a human. But these seagulls, they're not
You can
much
call them seagulls. It's okay.
yeah,
We
but
sometimes do.
they were living their best lives. Like they're just we're floating in the air as this wind was coming past them. They're just floating there, hovering, hanging in the air, very calm. As the world around them just looks there's just snow blowing in their face. And they're just very calm, flying, hovering through the air, just diving for food as needed. And which I just found fascinating because it definitely you know, I, I've never really, I guess, thought about seagulls too much, but that day was one of those days where I gained a lot of respect for their being, just as their ability to really thrive in a way that, to thrive during weather that humans run away from. And then what also made that interesting is during this project too, the bufflehead ducks, they're usually dotting the horizon. Like, on a typical day, you'll see them out there, but they're so far away, you need like binoculars basically to see them. But, because of how bad the weather was, all the bufflehead ducks were very close to the shoreline. So that also made the filming location interesting because you had these seagulls diving for food, then you had these buffalo ducks in the background just floating on the water, and then got some interesting shots too. It's like the buffalo ducks, like they were a bit perturbed by it because of the fact that they were close to the land, but at the same time, like you didn't see this in the film I played, but in the snowstorm, you'll see it is as the waves come in, you'll see the bufflehead ducks just like calmly like dive underneath them. So and then pop right back up. So they're just kind of like waiting there. As a big wave comes, they might float over it, or if it's too big, then they just like, calmly just dive right underneath it. So it's just really fascinating to see, how these, birds experience the world so differently from us. And, that's also why I like, filming or taking pictures because it kind of gives you permission in a way to explore your curiosities. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a cool clip, the one with the gulls and the buffaloes. What's interesting about gulls is that, as you mentioned, there's a lot more to them than meets the eye. There's
Yeah.
so many different varieties, and there was one
Oh, yeah.
actually that came from, I think, South America this year. It was just one in the United States that was in Milwaukee called a
Oh,
kelp gull. So
huh.
people came from all over the country to look at this gull that was trying to nest on top of this roof in the downtown area. So I think it was basically right under the Hone Bridge, actually. So it's pretty
Oh,
crazy, the world of gulls. And there's actually a guy who wrote an entire book on gulls and the identification of them. And he just kind of goes by the moniker the gull guy. So
hmm.
people can get pretty in depth with the gulls. And that's the case with pretty much every different variety of birds. Did you do any other documentary work before even the gull one? Does it go back farther with other stuff?
So, I mean, I've been doing this professionally as a video producer for an ad agency since about 2012 or so. I do like, some kind of more promo documentary style videos. But I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really say that the snowstorm film was really my first venture into the space. But yeah, I mean, I've been honing my craft for years, just professionally as a video producer. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it shows with the quality of the video produced with the bank swallows themselves. So let's
thank
go
you.
back to when you decided I'm going to make a documentary about these bank swallows. Was there a moment of inspiration where you kind of thought, this is something I'm interested enough in that it's flipping the scale to I want to focus all on these particular birds?
Yeah, so I mean, there were a couple stages of it. Like, one was just that I had this successful seagull documentary, and then two, just being fascinated by the birds themselves. So that was like the first step. And then, yeah, like I was saying before, too, then the second step was to just going out there and filming. And then, I mean, honestly, when I went out there to film the first day, I thought like Snowstorm is what I'd call more of like a vibe documentary where there's no voiceover. All it is you see the scenes of waves crashing, and then you see the scenes of the seagulls diving for food. You see the bufflehead ducks, and there's really ephemeral music playing over it, the sound of waves crashing, and the audience isn't really told what to think about any of it. But so that was what I thought I was going to do with the bank swallow one at first. But then, as I like kind of kept learning about them and filming them more, I just became more and more fascinated and interested about different things. So it was really kind of like an organic process where at first I thought I was going to make a 5 minute film, and then after filming all summer, I was just like, okay, I guess I can do 10 minutes. I think that's all this makes sense to do for talking about one bird. Um, and then long story short is like, yeah, like I said, it's like a 27-minute documentary now, but in the process of going from 10 to 27 minutes was one, sitting down with about 40 hours of footage and trying to craft that into a story. Two, trying to figure out who the audience was. And I just happened to be at the Retzer Nature Center actually, and I saw that they were playing a planetarium film as I was editing this, and I just went up to them and I was just like, "Hey, how would you feel about um, you know a bank swallow film being played in here?" And they were really into it because they're an actual nature center,
Hmm.
so for them it fits their content perfectly. And then as a filmmaker, I mean, I said, so I have made other short films before that aren't documentary focused and music videos and stuff like that. and typically you're begging people to, watch anything you make. It's really difficult to get your work out there, and especially have people interested in it. So once the Restaurant Nature Center, well, it's actually, I should call it is the Horwitz de Reamer Planetarium. It's those are the people I'm working with, just a separate entity at the Restaurant Nature Center. So
They're part of
so
the
what's
same building to anybody listening who wants to know. It's like the Nature Center and Planetarium are kind of one. You can walk to one from the other, but they're all kind of a conglomerate, yet still separate entities.
Yes, exactly. So the staff at the planetarium, the director of it, actually, Lisa, she was very excited about it. So once she, you know, showed that she was excited about, it, she was just like, "I'd love to program this, but I need it to be 25 minutes."
Okay, okay.
So then I basically, then extended it to about 25 minutes. I really doubted that it was working. And I was like gathering feedback from different people, and was just kind of struggling with the storyline. So then next, what happened was I felt like I exhausted my local network of people who could, who gave me good feedback, but also wasn't, the film still wasn't where I wanted it to be. It just, yeah, it was just kind of felt very educational. Nothing wrong with that necessarily, but I wanted this to be like more Planet Earth like, or Nat Geo like. So I ended up reaching out to some people with experience on, nature shows for Nat Geo and Planet Earth, like on LinkedIn. And this guy named Jack Chapman, he ended up coming on as a story consultant, and now he has a co-writer credit. But yeah, he really helped transform the documentary into something that was kind of educational feeling to something that feels more story based. So then once he gave me his rewrite of it, it started really working well. And then another piece to the puzzle there is, as I'm doing all of this, I'm, decided I wanted to go a little bit deeper than just like a standard nature documentary. So I really love the show Radiolab, and something they do is kind of uncovering what you can't really see, or just kind of, showing you details of the world that are easy to overlook. Anyways, but so I decided to have the film also explore their sense perceptions, and in the process, I also started. I found this research paper by this guy named Luke Tyrell. He also had a co-author on it. I can't remember his name, but I reached out to Luke Tyrell, who's a PhD biologist at SUNY Plattsburgh, and he was happy to answer questions about his research paper. That was basically about avian vision, well, specifically vision in swallows, and how swallows have four fovea, which means, or four foveae, which means that they have basically four focal points in their vision. Like humans, we essentially have one focal point. We have two foveae that focus on one point, where swallows, they have four foveae, and each foveae focuses on its own separate point. I started asking questions about that, and then I started asking more questions about avian vision, and he stuck through all my questions. So now he became the science advisor on the film, and yeah, I mean, it is really incredible if you ever get the chance to talk to somebody with a PhD in biology. Like, just the depth of knowledge is just absolutely insane. So anyways, so once I had those two guys really helping me out, and the film started taking shape. And then the last big piece of the puzzle was I was getting feedback that, like, you really want to see inside their nest. Like, why we need to see inside this bird's nest, because that's where the action is happening with, like, the eggs, and then the eggs hatching. There's just such a huge storyline that was there that originally the film was missing. So I didn't know what to do about that at first. I really struggled with it because there's just no ethical way for me to capture that in Milwaukee. because I would have basically be risking the lives of the birds, and potentially also causing erosion and or needing to get a permit that I just didn't have time to get and spend more money on a camera. So I was,
They're in a pretty crazy place. They're on the side of a cliff that is, I don't know what it's even made out of, if it's sandstone or basically just compressed sand and debris over time. But you would have to have drilled down somehow into a nest or just somehow scaled it and stuck a camera in one of them. So yeah,
yeah,
I think
exactly.
you're right. There was no way it was going to work ethically.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I could have done is like make like a fake nest, but then I would have been relying on them hoping that they choose to be in my fake nest instead of one of their real burrows.
That's what I was wondering at first because I didn't know how you got the footage until the end when they explained it. And I was wondering if you put a nest box out there somehow, whether you hung it down there or something to get that footage. And I was like, I would want to see a documentary on that, on trying to hang a nest box out there.
Yeah. Well, actually, that reminds me, like something that was really fun about like working and filming these birds was like they're just very confident birds for the most part. Like I got pretty close to them, and just did not seem to care. Like, and I would always try to do my best to stay within the bounds of just like not doing anything that could harm them. I did find their boundary, but like it is like they really are pretty confident with. I mean, just their whole burrow system is built in a way to avoid predators, and they're confident enough in that burrow system avoiding predators that like you can go stand 15 feet away from their nests and burrows, and they're basically ignoring you. Um,
I think that's a swallow thing in general because
oh
tree
yeah,
swallows will dive bomb you if you get close to their nests, and cliff swallows and barn swallows will nest close to humans. So it seems like they are pretty confident just doing their thing around people at least.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And actually, I never got dive bombed. And I actually, yeah, I can't say I got pooped on too much either. But one time, this guy I went out with, he kept complaining that he was getting pooped on. But, anyways, so they, what I was gonna say is back to the Nest Cam. Is that so? Then I found this researcher who was live streaming a Nest Cam of them in Ireland. This is in Cork, Ireland. This place called Harper's Island Wetlands, and basically, this is more of a thing in Europe, it seems. But to replace the all the habitat for bank swallows that's been lost, they have these basically nesting walls. Something could be 15 feet wide, about 8 feet tall, and will have about 20 to 40 holes in it. And then each hole is basically like a fake burrow. So and this nesting wall is like set up right next to a pond, so it's like it basically imitates what Sandy Bluff is, where they can just kind of fly onto this thing, and then they like go into the hole, and it's just 2-3 feet deep burrow for them to make a nest. So
That's really
that's
cool, honestly.
yeah, it is really cool, and yeah, so like that's I got lucky where like this is like actually this is basically the only person in the world who has this footage. So like I reached out to him, and I felt very fortunate that they allowed me to use it. And Jim Wilson is one of the main guys who's heading it up. So he's doing a long-term project or long-term research project on swallows, and has already discovered a couple things. I mean, one thing is like swallows are. I mean, I feel like the game Angry Birds, they should just have a swallow on the cover because, I mean, you see in the film, and also like some things that, Jim's discovered this time is that, these birds will fight each other nonstop. And, yeah, there's a lot of conflict in their colonies.
Yeah, it seems like they had a lot of rage based on the videos that were when the burrows. There's one where they're fighting and then it's said for an hour or more. They're just
Yeah,
battling
they
it out.
fought. Yeah, and actually, that's another detail that couldn't quite get in the documentary. So it wasn't just that they were fighting for an hour, but this, I mean, they were fighting for like a solid hour, but then also the bird left at one point for an hour or two and then returned to fight for another like 15-20 minutes.
I wonder why it had so much beef with the other
Yeah,
bird.
I don't know. But Yeah, then another thing actually Jim discovered in his research was that this wasn't included in the documentary, but like they discovered some swallow coming into the burrow and then just like destroying all the eggs in a nest and then just like leaving.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting where there were some moments where in the documentary it states that nobody knows why they're doing some of these things that they're doing with just destroying eggs or leaving eggs, pushing eggs out, just a variety of things that no one is really aware of.
Yeah.
How much research do you think we as a civilization really have on bank swallows?
Well,
Is there a lot we still have yet to discover about them? Because it seems like a lot of bird species, we don't actually really know much of anything.
yeah, actually, what's interesting is because so bank swallows are one of the few cosmopolitan birds in the world where they basically do live um, almost everywhere in a sense. Like they're all over North America, they're all over South America, and then they're all over, yeah, Europe, they're in Africa, Asia. So actually, a lot of research has been done on swallows, but I think, a lot of the research that we can do is, that sort of like how big is the swallow? Like when does the swallow lay eggs? How long do the eggs take to hatch? So it's more of like the behavioral stuff though that we're still seems to be lacking. I mean, I think that's also something the film grapples with is just like, what is their internal world like? So that's it is exploring through their sense perceptions, but then it also is it's talking to the science advisor and Jim is that we can basically there's only so much we can say when we observe a behavior because it takes a lot to go from like, oh, those two swallows are fighting to saying like, oh, those two swallows are fighting because one is trying to get the other one's mate or something like that.
Yeah, you can only really speculate about it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about a couple of specific scenes in the film. First of all, the scenes in any scene, there's several of them where they're actually catching insects on the wing are
Mhm.
really cool. So you just see the insect hovering, and then all of a sudden, when the swallows comes in, and just boom, right in the mouth, with slow motion, super cool.
Yeah.
Um, but the skunk scene was
Oh
a
yeah.
scene where everybody in the showing that I went to had a reaction. It's a skunk that's t trying to get at some of the swallows with the eggs, and it starts tumbling down the hill. And then on our showing, one kid was just like, "It's alive still" when it started to move, which was funny.
I
Tell us
love that
more
reaction.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting because yeah, I mean, well that was like one of those scenes that happens when you first capture it. Like you're like, okay, I guess I don't even know what to do with this at first because I captured that really early on in the process. So it's funny because at first I didn't even know the film had a place, but now it's one of the favorite scenes I think, or definitely one of the ones where people react to the most. But so I was during the main part of filming this was summer 2023, and I was going to the bluffs every day, sometimes twice a day, just checking on how things were changing. I wasn't filming every day, but I was just going there to see if there was anything new to capture, how things were changing, developing. So I was actually riding my bike and I went down and I walked out to the bluff side. And as I was walking out, I saw what I thought was like a shoe falling down the bluff. And I was really confused because I like looked up. Actually, yeah, I looked up and was like trying to see if anybody had thrown a shoe from the top. And I looked back again, and it actually was just this little skunk that had just apparently tumbled down the entire hill. So then at that point, I just watched it and it climbs and it continues to climb. It proceeds to climb all the way back up the bluff and tumble down again. And so then at that point, I was like, okay, I guess at that point, I had just watched it. I didn't even film it yet. So all I had was my iPhone. So I just ended up filming it with my iPhone and basically sat there for like 20 minutes in my biking gear, like on the side of the bluff, like just waiting for this thing to fall again. And I mean, luckily for me, it did fall again. And yeah, and it's hard to say how it fell for, but you could guess at least 40 feet. You know,
Just
it's
tumbles
it
end over
it
end.
just yeah, it just feels like when you watch the footage, you're like, oh, okay, wow, that's quite a fall, and then it just keeps going and
Yeah.
going and going.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Oh, it's gonna fall for, 10 feet, and then it just keeps going, like you said. And you're like, how
Yeah,
is this thing gonna survive that? And then you see it move, and you're like, okay, I guess it's fine.
yeah, yeah. But that's like one of my favorite things is like, yeah, that wasn't its first time falling. It fell at least three times.
You think at some point it would just stop and do something else,
Yeah,
up on a different food source. And then the
yeah,
other scene that I thought was interesting was the belted kingfisher that's living inside of the same wall that the bank swallows are. And the bank swallows didn't seem to care for it being there, but it looked like it must have raised a successful brood of chicks as well. Was that thing getting mobbed every time it would come back to the nest burrow? Was it just a
yeah.
constant battle between those two species?
Yeah, it definitely was getting mobbed a lot. Like, I mean, that was like another thing where I didn't come into this as a birder. So like, when I first saw that, I actually had no idea what a belted kingfisher was. And when I first was capturing it, it had a fish in its mouth. But because of the way the fish was in its mouth, it looked like it had this like long beak. And as you're filming this stuff out in the wild, like, the sun is bright and you're trying to zoom in on something. And I have like a 5-inch monitor, so I only have really so much resolution to work with. So I I thought that the fish was actually part of its beak. So like I was just honestly confused about what kind of creature it was because it just I had never seen anything like that living around here. So I was, but anyways, yeah. So this what was really interesting is when I captured it, it would fly from the kingfisher would be on a perch, like on a branch, something like that, and then it would like fly over the water and make this really long loop, and then fly up to where eventually I figured out its burrow was, but it did this about 5 times. Like it had this fish in its mouth and would go to its burrow. It would like hover next to its burrow um, with the fish in its mouth, and then it would fly away. So, um, yeah, when I first saw that, it was just like a very captivating moment because like this bird that I didn't really know what it was doing would just like keep coming, flying up to this burrow. These bank swallows would just kind of chase it away, and eventually, it gets in there and you see the chick pop out and it, feeds the chick. But it was just very interesting because, it's like trying to feed its kid and its kid isn't coming to the front of the nest. And, but it actually worked out really well for me because, it meant that I basically had about 5 opportunities to film this kingfisher land and then fly back to the bluffs, which is, if you ever do nature documentaries, that's like capturing something so dramatic. You usually only get one opportunity. So having 5 opportunities to capture that really helped to make that scene much more magnificent than otherwise would have been. So yeah.
Yeah. Were there any other birds that you saw interacting with the bank swallows? Like any predatory birds coming by to try to snag one, like falcons or anything?
Not really. That's actually why I have so much footage is because I was trying to capture that. But yeah, I never really saw it. I mean, I would also only go out in the morning at sunrise, unless I saw something like, the skunk scene, or if you, there's also the scene of the chick that has fallen out of its nest and
That's a bummer scene.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. So that was another one. If I saw something like interesting story wise like that, I'd capture it. Whenever it was happening. But anyways, like I did when I did first notice these birds, and I think something that fascinated me about them was I did see a predatory bird get mobbed by them when I first saw the swallows, like years before I started filming them. So I was hoping to capture something like that again, but it did seem like even when the chicks were fledgling, I would not. I really didn't see anything like that, which yeah, I was hoping to capture, but I played up the drama a bit with the kingfisher scene. If you know what a kingfisher is, it will probably be a lot less dramatic. But if you if you don't know what a kingfisher is, I try to sell it as like, oh, maybe this bird is trying to, uh, get at them.
I was actually wondering if it would try, because birds kind of eat anything. If you've ever seen great blue herons or even sandhill cranes, they'll eat other birds. They'll eat, fish,
Yeah.
chipmunks, all sorts of stuff. There's videos of pelicans eating pigeons. So it's just
Oh yeah.
anything they can fit in their mouth, they'll eat. So I was wondering if one of those kingfishers saw one of those swallows down on the ground, one of the young ones, if it wouldn't try to nab it. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
I didn't really see any of the any of that, but I did notice. I mean, the kingfishers were definitely very territorial. Where like sometimes you'd notice that like as the swallows were like kind of going to and from their burrows, the kingfisher would like come out and it would make its uh, I guess I don't know what you'd call it, its song, but it would come out and it would, basically screech at the swallows. It would do a loop, screech at the swallows, and then fly back to a tree. And it was just kind of funny to see that sort of territorial behavior taking place.
Yeah, you're like, you guys built your nests really close to each other. You expect this kind of
Yeah.
thing to happen. Just know what you're
Yeah.
dealing with. So after doing all this stuff with the swallows, do you now feel like you're a bird guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've come to terms with being a bird guy. I think, I think, well, actually, as a kid, I was always fascinated by crows. So I think if I had a spark bird, maybe it would technically be birds. In a bigger sense, it would be the bank swallows, but crows, I've always been fascinated by them just because, just the way they look at you, it just feels like they're piercing into your soul.
They're smart.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm definitely. Yeah. I mean, I made a 27-minute video about swallows. So yeah, I'm definitely a bird guy. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely a fascinating creature. Just it's I've been thinking about this more and just how, they come from the lineage of dinosaurs. So, you know, they just came up in a world that's so much different from ours. So they just feel like an alien species just living amongst us. And they're also there's just so many of them. Like actually in your 150 bird video, like, it's like I mean, even as I'm discovering birds, I had no idea that you could spot 150 birds in a day in, a place like Wisconsin. That was
Yeah,
pretty mind.
one thing that's cool about birds in general that you touched on in the documentary is that a city like Milwaukee completely changed the landscape of the area being built like it is, and yet birds still thrive in the parks and along the shores and stuff. So there's just this cool juxtaposition of all of these metal buildings and skylines and things and bridges, and then birds that just fill in amongst those green spaces, and even the things that aren't green, they'll find a way to survive, which I think is really cool. So you can go down to Milwaukee on any given day and spot a bunch of different bird species, even in a place where you can see the high rises, which it's a neat thing. What is next for the film for you? What's the goal to try to get it out there? What do you have in the works?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. The first thing I should say is that I'm working on developing a, like maybe like a mini tour around the region. So Southeast Wisconsin, Northern Illinois, maybe a little bit outside of that, where during spring migration, I'll play the film and then give a talk and maybe try and bring a PhD or maybe try and find a biologist to join and answer questions. So to make it more of an event than just screening, but then so definitely if you're interested in something like that, definitely reach out. Um, but other than that, right now I'm submitting it to film festivals, and then I have it formatted for both planetariums and just normal theaters, standard screens. So I'm going to a planetarium convention or conference in a couple weeks, and going to be talking to different planetariums about getting them to play it in their domes, and then also talking to places like the Urban Ecology Center and other local birding places about screening it. So I'm definitely I'm attacking it from like a lot of different angles where, like I said, I've made other short films before and they usually fall flat, but because this one has like momentum behind people actually being interested in seeing it, um, I'm taking the marketing and getting it out there about as seriously as I was like taking making the film. So I'm, yeah, film festivals, individual private screenings, public screenings, whoever's interested in seeing it. If you're interested in seeing it, let me know, and I'd love to try to set up a screen with you, whether that's in a theater, just an event space, or planetarium.
So if people do want to see it, is the best way to do it just to kind of reach out to you and be like, what's showing it?
Yeah, yeah. Right now, that's the best way. I mean, next summer, so summer 2026, it should be programmed at the Retzer Nature Center or Horwitz Dreamer Planetarium full time. But for the next 6 months or so, it'll be limited screenings. And then also, I should say, I'm also hoping to get it on PBS or streaming network. So yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool. And then probably last question, what's next after that film in terms of more creative projects for you? Do you have some other things in the works that you're contemplating trying to do? Are you going to stick with birds? Are you going to go a different direction?
Yeah, so I mean, the big goal with this would be to try to find funding in order to expand on this series. So, the overarching, uh, theme of this, it's called Beyond Our Senses, and the story explores how the swallow's sense perceptions and their lives are so intertwined, and just how their perceptions of the world kind of shape their lives and vice versa. So I want to expand that series and most likely explore other animals. So there'd be a good chance, it kind of depends too. Then, like, if because basically for this one, like, this is all self-funded, and it's all on my own time. And in order to do another one, I would need funding, and I would need, basically be able to do it during the day as well. Because just to do something like this just takes a lot of time, as I'm sure with your, YouTube channel, everything. So, anyways, so the short answer is yes, I'd love to expand this into a series where we cover the sense perceptions and the lives of other animals, everything from insects to nocturnal creatures to animals underwater, just wherever animals are experiencing the world in wildly different ways than we are. So
That's pretty cool. I hope that you get the funding that you need.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, it's gonna be an uphill battle, but that's why I'm also trying to start with kind of like some local energy. I'm hoping to kind of do like smaller. I'm hoping that maybe by starting local, then I can kind of build momentum versus trying to just get it into more national places. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was really cool. It's cool to hone in on one specific species of birds, especially, well, for me, when I'm familiar with the exact colony, because we'll usually go see them at the parks in Milwaukee every year.
why
You
not?
can see
Yeah,
the bank swallows flying around. So I was like, oh, I know that place. But it
yeah.
was very cool. I actually have another question. There were some shots of swallows. It looked like it might be CGI flying. How did you get those shots or build
Oh
those?
yeah. I'm guessing you're talking about like the sequence with when I was showing
The
how
migration back
yeah, the
south, I think
migration
it
with
was.
Earth's
Yeah.
magnetic field. Yeah, so basically, just for context, like I was during this, there's a scene where I talk about migration and how the Earth's magnetic field guides them. So I worked with visual designer Jesse Egan, who lives here in Milwaukee, to design the actual Earth's magnetic field. And then so basically, then I had that scene without any birds in it. And I was like, oh man, this just isn't really working without see. Like, it's cool to kind of like, have an idea of like, maybe what they see, but like you really want to see a bird flying there. So That was one of the places where I actually went to Fiverr and worked with a variety of artists through Fiverr. So yeah, basically I found somebody who had a 3D model of a bird, and then I found somebody else to animate the bird, and then I worked with Jesse to composite the bird animations into it. So that was actually quite a process to yeah, get those in there. So
Yeah, that was awesome. It has a good mix of that kind of thing, nest box footage, live footage of the birds interacting and doing crazy stuff, slow-mo stuff, regular speed, it's
yeah.
all over. So you did really good work creating all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, I really appreciate it. I mean, I just can tell, like, yeah, I mean, I easily over 1,000 hours of my time. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2,000 hours of my time went into this. Yeah, I was just basically doing it nonstop for a while to meet the deadline of getting it played this year for the Apple Harvest Fest at Horst Struber Planetarium. So, but I really appreciate it because I mean, this has basically been my life for a while now.
Yeah, for sure. If people want to follow you, where can they follow you? What social media is the best?
Yeah, so right now the film is on Instagram at Beyond Our Senses Film. And then it's also on Facebook, also at Beyond Our Senses Film. You can also go to beyondoursensesfilm.com. So hopefully, if you search Beyond Our Senses Film, something will come up and you'll be able to follow me.
It does. And also if you
Yeah.
just type in Bank Swallow film
But
or
yeah,
Bank Swallow documentary, it does too.
yes.
I've
Okay,
tested them.
sweet. Well, that's what actually was kind of cool about this because like what's interesting is like I mentioned that these are a cosmopolitan bird that like live all over the place. So much research has been done on them. Like a lot is understood about them like as a physical species, but there's very little media on them, which was really cool to be able to really, have one of the only pieces of, I mean, there's other, snippets you can find about them, but as far as I can tell, this is like the first documentary exploring, the full life of the full life cycle of a bank swallow.
I would guess that that's definitely correct. I feel like a lot of bird people don't focus on swallows that much. I think maybe because they're so numerous, and I also think they're hard to photograph and get video of because they're so fast. So I'd not run into a lot of people that are super familiar with what swallows do and have a ton of great media of swallows. So I would
Okay.
bet that it probably is one of the few, if not only, full-length documentaries out there about
Yeah.
bank swallows to ever exist.
Yeah, well, that I mean, no, that's yeah. I mean, I'm definitely proud of that. It's just nice. Like I said, as a filmmaker, it's really hard to get things out there that people are interested in seeing. So I'm hoping that by this being kind of really a niche piece of media, that it connects with audiences and it makes people want to see it. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, David. I really appreciate it. And if you want to go watch the film, like we talked about, reach out to David and look for one of those screenings. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching this episode of the Badgerland Birding Podcast.